Looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub2 Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub2ers, my name is William Tingle of sub2deals.com. I would like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2 Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we will cover other topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. Today is another episode in the Real Expert series, where we feature experts in one or more aspects of real estate investing or on other topics that impact real estate investors. They'll share their expertise on these things that can be critical to your success as an investor. My guest today is Sharon Vornholt. Sharon is an expert on many topics: marketing, probate, and today's topic, which is branding. She's been an investor, she says she hates to say, for over 20 years. Don't we all? But she's certainly an expert in these topics. She's here today to talk to us about the importance of branding your business and finding a way to stand out in a sea of other people that do the same thing you do. So Sharon, welcome to the Sub2 Deals Show.
Well, thank you, William. I'm happy to be back on.
Yeah. Sharon has been on with us before. She did a segment on probate investing that was great, and also did a private training for our coaching students, which they absolutely love. So, Sharon, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, and why you're a branding expert.
Well, I got started. I had another business that I opened in 1991. I was actually a home inspection business, and about 7 years into that business, we did a lot of business with realtors, obviously. And I had a realtor come and say to me, "You want to go to a RIA meeting with me?" And I said something like, "What's a RIA meeting?" And so that was 1998 was my first time that I knew that you didn't have to be a realtor to that you could invest in houses without having a real estate license. So I went to those meetings, and within the first year, I bought my first property. I, did pretty much everything wrong, rehabbed it. The realtor made a lot of money. I made less, but I learned from that, and I just moved forward. And what I learned was that I loved rehabbing, and so I went down that path of doing rehabs and then buying an occasional rental. But it wasn't until 2008 that I went full time. So I closed the other business, and then I started full-time into real estate, and it was the best of times and the worst of times, as you know. So I was really good at generating leads, but that was about the worst time on the planet to be a rehabber, unless you had a W-2 job and that wasn't money that you were counting on for your income. And that's when I tell people I became an accidental wholesaler. Literally overnight, I started wholesaling properties. And that's really just how it started. But my strength was always in generating leads. And I've been in two fields where they're generally male-dominated fields. So I had to find a way to stand out that gave credibility to what I did, not just because I was different.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you just carried over, and what I see with that sort of thing is marketing is marketing. It doesn't matter what business you're in, all the same things apply. And the key really is, for example, we were talking in the coaching group this morning about marketing to pre-foreclosures. And I said, guys, do you realize how many cards and letters and phone calls these people get? Mm-hmm. You have to do something that makes you, when they see your card or your letter or your method of contact, it has to really stand out for them to decide to call you. So you carried that, you brought that over into real estate investing, what you had used prior.
I did, because even in the other business, it was kind of a business where people handed out business cards, and we did direct mail right from the get-go. Mm-hmm. We did direct mail, and that was back in the day when you could actually walk into a real estate office and take them. If it was Valentine's Day, we would take a basket of branded little heart-sized balloons with our company name on them. Mm-hmm. So we always did those sorts of things, which were the branding side of marketing. But yes, so of course, in 1991, there really was no internet. So you had to do what people like to refer to as the old style marketing.
Right.
And direct mail and all of those things, networking and all of the things that work so well now, we just carried those forward into the new business. And we had a really good understanding of how to stand out.
Mhm.
And as the technology and things has evolved, it's made it even simpler for everybody. Real estate investors, all of y'all need to understand that at the end of the day, everybody's putting deals together. We're all buying property. Everybody is the same in that respect. So if you're going to succeed long-term, you have to have a way to differentiate yourself. And that's what the branding part of it is about. So marketing is how you get leads, and branding is why they choose you. And that's why branding is so important. So marketing is how you get leads. The branding is why they choose you. And when you marry those two together, marketing and branding, this allows you to create your expert status.
Right.
And to stand out.
Right. So what actually is your brand?
Your brand is people think of it as just, the physical attributes of branding, but your brand is actually how people feel about you. It's how they feel after interacting with you. And so if you're at your RIA meeting and every contact you have with anybody, whether it's your RIA meeting, your direct mail, on the phone, you are creating a feeling within these people, and you want them to feel like they've made the right choice. You want them to feel like you are the person for them, that you are the expert they're looking for. And this is something that you cultivate through every touch point with these motivated sellers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I'm a new investor and I'm wanting to get started, what do you think the steps are to take to start? I mean, it seems like you should start that immediately with trying to create a brand and trying to do something to set yourself apart. If you were a new investor today, where would you get started doing that?
Well, first of all, you do need a business card. If people think, oh, we have all this technology, no, you need a physical business card. And you're right, you need to do this right from the beginning. And this is when people ask me, what is the biggest mistake you made? It was in not branding myself as a personal brand right from the beginning. People may remember your company name, but they're going to remember your name, hopefully. And they're always going to remember how you made them feel. So when you hand them a business card, you do that, you tell them who you are, but your next word shouldn't be, and this is how great I am. Your next word should be, tell me about yourself. So it all starts with that business card, but you do that through networking. You start with networking. And if you're brand new, I like to tell people, if they came to your seminar that you have coming up and they didn't know what to say to you, I would say to them, just go up to William and say, I'm brand spanking new and I'm here to learn. And right then you're going to remember that person. You're going to remember what they said to you, how they made you, how the feeling that exists between you. So start with your business card. The next thing, and this is critical, this is right from the get-go, you need a website. It's not something you can get away with not having. You need a website, and there are many done for you solutions out there. So you don't have to spend $5,000 on a website. So that's another thing. The other way, you have to start to build an online presence. If you Google yourself, chances are, if you're brand new, you're not going to find anything. Now, William and I have been creating content for a long time, so we're going to show up online. However, you can do that by building out a Facebook profile, by building out a LinkedIn profile, by building out profiles on sites like Bigger Pockets, so that if you Google your name, you will have something that will come up that will lend.
I hear you going back to talking about old school marketing methods, direct mail, business cards, things like that. And, it was funny, before we got on today, we were talking about that we've reached the point now where we've been investing longer than some of the new investors in the market.
I know.
And it's funny. a lot of these guys, and you see it in the Facebook groups and anywhere that you hang out and listen to them and watch them. They're so anti old school. It kills me, people that say, oh, bandit signs don't work. I mean, I can drive from here across town and see 1,000 of them before I get across town. They're out there for a reason. They generate calls. They're $1 a piece. It's just amazing how many people frown on the old school stuff, but there's a reason it's been around for a really long time.
Well, that's true. And here's the thing, we date ourselves, but being around before the internet, these were things you did. But today, what you do is you add those to the tools you have today, the online things, and then you have a complete package.
Right.
But I think back to 2008 when I remember the time where there were 1 million REOs and all of these deals out there. Sadly, people were losing their homes. I was at my REIA meeting one time, and I heard a young guy saying at the end of that, a few years down the road, I guess we're going to have to go back to doing direct mail. And there were some of us over in the corner saying, guess what? We never stopped.
Right.
So you may have done those things, but you certainly didn't shut off your direct mail. And that is being able to do the tried and true things and add the new things.
Right.
And then solidify those with your brand. Those are the markers of success.
Right. I agree. And I totally agree with you too about the web presence. It's so easy to have a website now. If you have to, if you're brand new, you don't have a dime to your name, they're free websites, not the best scenario for credibility purposes, but it's better than nothing. And we even offer a website investor package, a website for buyers and a website for sellers. That's $100 to set them both up for you. If you're a coaching student, you pay the setup fee. You don't even pay hosting for them anymore. We pay for hosting for you. And if you're not a student, it's $10 a month for hosting for 2 websites that collects information, will forward buyer and seller information to you. But you can pay for some pretty pricey things out there. There are a lot of websites that are $50, $100 a month. You don't have to spend that kind of money to have a web presence, for sure.
But people, here's an example. So I talked to a guy, and I may have told you this story before. I was looking at a property, and he decided to sell me the property over someone else. And I asked him why he chose me, because I was really curious. And he said the other guy didn't have, now this is a guy who's in his probably 85. He said the other guy didn't even have a website. He's obviously a shyster. I thought that was so funny, because it's just expected that you have some sort of a web page, a website or something. And it speaks to your credibility. They don't think you're a real business if you don't have it.
Yeah, that's true, because everybody has a website today, someplace that you can go and learn more about the person or what kind of business they do or anything else. And people will absolutely Google you before they do business with you, for sure.
For sure, they'll do that.
So if you have an unusual name, it can be a big advantage for you. If you do good business, you get out there, you set up all these profiles. And so when somebody searches your name, you're the first page or two of the things that they find, and it's all positive. So totally agree with you on that. What do you think about, and this is something I tell my students all the time, anytime you do a transaction, whether it's with a buyer or a seller. Now, years ago, we would say get a written testimonial. Now we say get video. Right away. And don't wait, because listen, when you're signing paperwork with a buyer or a seller, both of them love you at that moment. That moment. That is the best time to pull out that phone and say, do you mind sharing how I was able to help and what you think about our company?
And that's exactly what you say, how I was able to help.
Right.
Most people today, even 5 years ago, some people were reluctant. And I would say to them, well, what if you tell me and I'll write it down? Or would you want to write it down? But today, most everybody, they're okay with it. They'll just tell you, and then you've got a bona fide testimonial that you can also put on your YouTube channel.
Right.
And then when people are looking you up online, YouTube gets indexed really fast in Google since they own, they're one company.
Right.
So if you've got testimonials and they're Googling your name, guess what's going to come up? That video is going to come up.
Right. Yep. Video is some of the best. I mean, it is, like you said, it's indexed quickly. There's so many tools now, and you can have a YouTube channel, again, for free. Doesn't cost you anything.
Free.
But there's so many tools now that do all of the search engine optimization of your channel, keywords. It'll tell you which, if you're selling a home in Pittsburgh or whatever the case may be, and they're going to pull up your testimonial where Joe's talking about how great Sharon is. They were foreclosing on our house in 3 days. She came out, stopped the foreclosure, put money in our pocket, and was able to buy our house. And so somebody in that kind of situation wants to talk to Sharon.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And that's why and where branding is concerned, I always encourage people, you always, that's not to say you don't have a company name, but people know you by you, and they know you by Sub2 Deals. They don't know you by your company name.
Right.
I mean, they don't. So you should certainly be under the umbrella of a company, but people will remember you, and you want them to remember you.
Right.
Rather than your company.
Now, that brings a question, an interesting question there, and we've had this discussion before in the circle of real estate educators or trainers or teachers. Do you want to put everything out there under your business name or your name personally?
I think your name personally. There was a local investor here that had branded everything with his business. And probably about 7 or 8 years ago, he had to go unbranded because they knew him. He was a speaker. They didn't know his company name. They knew him. So he had to undo everything and redo it. But if you start out from the beginning, and so you're William Tingle of these of Sub2 Deals, you're still William Tingle. Now, in 10 years from now, if you decide to be William Tingle, deep sea diver, then you can just do an exit plan from Sub2 Deals.
Right.
Guess what? They still find you.
Right.
If you're under a company name, you literally have to start all over again.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. And a lot of people don't realize that when they're getting started, your name really is your brand, because no matter company to company to company, it's still you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. So now we know all of the things that branding is. What is branding not about?
Branding is not people think it's about logos and colors and fonts and all of those things. And the physical components of a brand are important. So I'm looking at the sign you have behind you. That's a physical attribute of your brand. And those are important in solidifying your brand. But before you ever think about a logo, go network and get known. So, they're not going, your physical components of your brand are identifiers, but they're not what you stand for. They're not who you are. Right. So they are like second tier things.
So would you say because I know when I got started, I decided my colors would be yellow and blue. So my business cards were yellow and blue. My magnetics were yellow and blue. When we did billboards, we did yellow and blue. Everything, our letterheads, everything was. And I don't know if that made people notice us, because we didn't have a national name. We worked locally at the time. But people like Homevestors, for example, they recognize those colors, that yellow and red. That's pretty recognizable. Right. So you have to have a pretty steep marketing budget, I think, for those things to matter tremendously. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think you need the physical components. And I would say to anybody, don't agonize for 3 months over a logo or colors. Like you said, blue and yellow. See, I'm the person that would sit there with the palette and be going, now, this shade is a little different than this shade. And my daughter goes, they all look the same to me. And I go, no, they don't. Right. So, but they are important. And I do think you should have those, but I don't think you should put your total focus on those until you get started. because you will almost certainly change. So decide your colors are blue and yellow.
Yeah.
Go to Vistaprint or wherever and pick out a business card and get those colors and be done with it.
Right.
And then in a couple of years from now, when you have a better idea of who you are, what type of people you want to attract into your business, that's the time to really dial in your physical branding attributes.
I got you. Yeah, I agree. I know in the educational side of our business, we've had the name Sub 2 Deals for 20 years, but we've just in the last year or two started refining logos. It's really interesting in doing that.
Yeah.
We go back on Google and say the Pepsi logo over the past 100 years or the Coca-Cola logo, and it changes so much, but they're subtle changes over time. A lot of people don't even really notice them. So you can change the physical attributes. If you don't like something later, just do it. But it almost sounds like this is the kind of thing people could use as a crutch to not actually make any offers on houses.
That's exactly what it is. And that's the point I'm trying to get across.
Right.
And you mentioned Pepsi and brands like Coke. Yes, they do make changes, but they're subtle. So you wouldn't take your Sub 2 Deals back there and decide one day it was going to be red. You would maybe, if you were going to do that, you might integrate a touch of red, and then next year you might integrate another touch.
Right.
So you don't want people to really notice. They might say, well, you freshened up your brand, and that's okay. Right. But if you go off in a completely different direction, it confuses people.
Yeah.
People that is a strong identifier.
Right.
But that's not what you should focus on in lieu of doing deals.
Right. It almost reminds me of there's another teacher that's pretty well known that you and I both know that gave me an example of a student. It's been a while back that he had started working with. And he said, I had this conversation. I was telling them what they needed to do to get their first deal and so on and so forth. And then we had our next coaching call the next month. And I asked them, have you talked to any sellers? Have you done this? Have you done that? And they said, no. And I said, why? And they said, because I haven't picked out a name for my LLC yet.
That's exactly, I know you're talking about. That is exactly the way it happens. So people need to understand they need to do it. But honestly, if you don't get started with the business of real estate, you're not going to need a logo. Right. You're not going to need any of these other things.
Yeah.
The Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Hey Sub 2ers, do you want to learn how to get the deed but need a little help getting started? Want to learn how to fill out the paperwork, how to use a land trust, how to market for deals, how to negotiate with sellers, and more? Join us in the Sub 2 Deals Facebook coaching group. Get the benefits of one-on-one coaching without the big price tag. Learn to do Sub 2 right with coaching in a group setting and mastermind format. Head over to sub2deals.com right now and click on consulting and group coaching. We'll save you a seat. Back to the show, the Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle.
So don't let anything that we're talking about today keep you from what makes money. And that is talking to sellers and looking at houses, making offers. Now, those are the most important things, but obviously branding is something you need to be thinking about. Back to the example about the LLC, I bought my first 3 houses in William Tingle name because
that's scary, isn't it?
I just wanted to do some stuff, and we talk about LLCs and land trust and all this stuff now for asset protection. But if I had waited until I understood all those things and had it just perfect, I might still be, slinging pizzas and flipping hamburgers because I just might not have gotten around to it. So certainly if you're getting started, certainly be thinking about the brand that you want everyone to recognize and how you want to be seen, but don't let that stop you from doing the actual business.
Well, and there are things that you can do right from the beginning. So I look at it as your number one job in branding yourself is to create an unforgettable experience. Right. You don't need a business card. You don't need to know. You don't even have to be the best investor. You have to be adequate at what you do. You do have to be able to put a deal together to make an offer. Let's say you need to be able to make an offer. But I can guarantee you this, if you create an unforgettable experience with that seller at every touch point, you do it on the phone, you do it at the property, you do it in your follow-up, you've just branded yourself.
Mhm.
as a caring person, as a reputable person. Remember, we talked about how you make people feel, how people feel about
Right.
you. All of those things. That's what happens is they say, gosh, that William, we didn't strike an agreement just yet, but he's a nice guy. He followed up in spite of the fact that I said no, which I say it means not now.
Mhm.
But you've already made that impression. And if you can just do that, create an unforgettable experience, you'll beat people out that make them a better offer time
Right.
and time again.
Oh, you see that all the time. You see
Yep.
investors make deals happen
Mhm.
where they pay less, offer less, do less for the seller, but because the seller liked them.
Mhm.
How many times have I heard, you know what? I talked to Crazy Steve that buys any house across town last week, but man, that guy was really obnoxious and rude. He offered me more, but I like you better. Man, I've heard that more times than I can
Yep.
count.
Yep. That's your brand right there. Your
Right.
brand standing front and center.
So it sounds to me like branding doesn't really start at all with a business card or a website. I mean, those are important components at some point, but it
Mhm.
starts with doing good business and just treating people fairly
Mhm.
and making them comfortable with working with you.
And going the extra mile.
Mhm.
So this is somebody told me the other day, that's really old school. So whenever I look at a house, I always send a handwritten thank you note.
Mhm.
Always, whether I got the deal or not. And I would go so far as to say it's just as important, if not more important, if you didn't get the deal, you should send them the business card, because if they didn't like your offer, it's likely they threw your business card in the garbage. So
Mhm.
when you send your thank you note, be sure and put another business card in there.
Right.
Now, a tool that I use now is Bonjoro. It's a little Chrome extension, a little service you can sign up for. There's a free version, you can try it out. So it's Bonjoro. It's I think $10 a month when you get on the paid plan. So you can just click on that little uh, icon on your Chrome extension and a video creator pops up. And I would say, gosh, William, thank you so much for showing me your house today. We weren't able to reach an agreement, but I'll be in touch, and let me know if there's something else I can do to help you that would move the needle along, or whatever you say. But that the thing that's different about Bonjoro than just if you make a video and you have to send them a link, is Bonjoro puts the player on your page. Now they're going to click on that and they're going to go to Bonjoro, but the fact that that video is sitting right there, and I always say, I made you a video. That's all I say. I made you a video.
Right.
And then they'll click on it almost 100% of the time. But nobody is doing that. Nobody.
Right.
It's a way you can welcome people into a new course, a new coaching program.
Mhm.
There are a million ways to use it.
Right. And there's so many things that you can say, again, going back to any way I can help you, whatever. I heard a guy, and I can't even remember who it was one time, that said what he likes to tell sellers that he works with is, hey, we may not be able to work together, but I'm happy to be a resource for you to help you in any way that I can.
Exactly.
Yep.
Leave the door open. Whenever you
Right.
make an offer, whether you get the deal or not, leave the door open, because you may also get a referral from them. You know, they may refer you to someone else.
Right. Okay. We've touched on this just a little bit earlier, but I guess what I always try to think of these podcasts in terms of a new investor that's just getting started. And a lot of people need sort of a roadmap on things. So let's say that I'm new, I'm just getting started, and I want to establish a presence online very quickly. If you just had to map out 4 or 5 steps to get started with today to move the needle forward, what would you say that they should get started with?
I would say identify your social media channels, just a couple. If depending on, you may or may not want to do LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn profile. Most investors do. I don't particularly think I have gotten a lot of deals off of there, but I think you should have a LinkedIn profile. Right. You should have a Facebook page. Again, it should be your name, and then underneath, maybe your business name, or Sharon Buys Houses, or whatever that is. Right. So establish that. If you do Instagram, set up an Instagram profile, but do 2 or 3 social media channels. That's the first thing. The second thing is to identify, you want to identify your ideal customer. For instance, if I need to know who I'm trying to attract, which motivated sellers am I going to go after? Because that's going to kind of determine what you put in your bios. If I were a hedge fund, my bio would look differently than if I had a website that says Sharon buys houses. Right. So it's a little bit tweaked, but identify who you're trying to, when you're doing this, identify who your person is. You should have a compelling story to tell. If somebody says, how did you get in this business? It doesn't have to be something like I was living under a bridge and then this happened. It can be like I always tell people, my dad was a general contractor, and being the best behaved of 4 children and the oldest, I got to go with him on construction sites. Right. That's a true story, but that's how I started. That's where my original interest in real estate came from. Mm. So you need to have a story, and it may just be that I've lived in this city forever. You know, we have a family-owned business. Whatever your story is, you should be able to tell people about how you can help them, and then tag on to the end of that your compelling story. You need to have a visual presence online. So until you can get professional photos, which are in the $100, $150 range, get somebody to take some really good still shots with their iPhone. You need to have on your website, remember we talked about a website, so I'm assuming you already heard that piece. Right. You need to have pictures of yourself. If you coach your son's ball team, or you do charity work, or whatever you do in addition to real estate, something else that they can identify with, because you're trying to get them to say, he's just like me, or she's just like me. You know, that's what you're trying to do. And then on your website, you need to have a casual video that just tells you how you can help people. Right. It can be 2-3 minutes, and you can shoot this. And if you're like me, you'd probably shoot it up 25 or 30 times. Right. But it would say, you know, this is what I do. I've lived in Louisville, Kentucky my whole life. You know, this is how I can help you with your problem. And then I would say, you know, I have 2 grown daughters and 1 granddaughter that you'll probably get really sick of hearing about, because I just have 1. But you know, they need to know that you're just not all business. They need to know something about you other than you're great at what you do. Right. And then create content. So this is, you don't have to have a podcast, you don't have to have a blog, but like William said earlier, video is the fastest way to get known on the planet. Shoot a video of you walking through a property, or, you know, of a really nasty looking kitchen, whatever. Put it on Facebook, put it on, I wouldn't put those necessarily on LinkedIn, but you can build your brand presence around video and even around still photos. But and then network. Mm-hmm. So know who you're trying to attract, build your social media profiles, put some content on there. At some point, you do need to have some professional photos made, a few. So you want to create an overall presence that says, I am an expert, I can do what I say I'm going to do, and I am the person you want to choose.
Right. And then those testimonials thrown in there too, yes, pretty much just back up.
They back it up.
What you just said. Yes, I'm an expert. I do this, I do that. And here are some of our satisfied customers.
Without ever saying I'm an expert, that's what you're saying. Right. You're saying this is how I can help you. And all of these other things are pulled in, and they solidify your expert status. Right.
And it sounds like you can pretty much set this up for very little to no cost if you had to.
You can. And the quickest way to get known is through networking too. The second way, you know, online, it's video and networking. Get out there and get out of your comfort zone. If you're kind of shy, on the shy side, just go make it your mission to go meet a few people. Right. If you go to, let's say you're going to William's event here in the fall, make it your goal to meet not 24 people necessarily, but make a half a dozen good connections. Maybe more in that time, but meet some people that can be there. You can use as a resource, or they may tell you one piece of information that will forever change your business.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would make it a point, you know how many people are going to be there. You say, listen, if there are going to be 500 people there, I'm taking 500 business cards. And when I leave, I won't have any left, and that's what you need to do. I mean, especially when you get around other people that do what you do, or in the same business, for sure. So great. Well, Sharon, thanks so much for visiting today and telling us how to get started with branding. We really appreciate that.
Well, I think once you get the idea that you don't have to spend a lot of money, there's really some simple steps you can take. Don't make the mistake I did and think you're not worthy of building a brand if you've only done 1, 2, or 3 deals or no deals. Right. You need to build your brand right from the beginning.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, Sub-Tours, that is it for this episode of the Sub-2 Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute and it helps others discover the show. And if you haven't yet, we want you to register for our event. Sharon mentioned our event a couple of times. This September 2021, we are having a Sub-2 event, Sub-2 Palooza in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're going to have about a dozen of some of the best speakers, the best real estate trainers from across the country there. Going to have a ton of investors there and have a really good time. Just go to Sub2Palooza.com. Until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub-2 Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com and on Facebook at Sub2 Deals. We'll catch you next time.